Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We will be beginning at 1:05 p.m. We'll check back here shortly. Thanks. Hello, everyone. We'll be beginning here very shortly. Thank you for your patience. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for joining. Today, we're very excited to talk through how to increase revenue and visibility with Field Service Lightning. Today will be a three-part webinar. We're going to talk through a very exciting customer success story utilizing Field Service Lightning for Spirit Energy services. And then we'll also talk through some common implementation challenges for implementing field service management software and how we combated those challenges with Spirit Energy Services for this implementation, and then also some best practices for implementing field service lightning. So before jumping in, just a couple housekeeping items here. So this will be recorded, and all of the participants, everyone who signed up, will receive a copy of the recording. During the presentation, at any time, if you have any questions, if you scroll down to the bottom of the webinar, there is an area to submit questions. So after going through the success story and the challenges and best practices, we will pause and have some time at the end to talk through Q&A. And also, we'd very much appreciate completing the survey after the presentation on feedback and lessons learned. So prior to jumping into the success story today, just wanted to give you a little bit of background about NeuraFlash for those of you who are not aware of NeuraFlash and the capabilities that we offer. We're one of the fastest growing Salesforce partners in the ecosystem. My name's Jason Kitchen. I run our field service lightning practice. Now our specialties on the Salesforce platform are in the 3 different pillars. The Einstein portfolio around anything with artificial intelligence and digital channels and self-service. And then what we'll be talking about today, which is field service lightning and also service cloud and contact center. So for all of you that have worked on or are in field service operations, it's definitely critical for a company to understand, the full platform, as field service has many different entry points. So having that expertise across the platform and also the success stories, one of which we'll talk through today, is key to any successful field service management solution. So jumping into today, just wanted to introduce our 2 speakers here today. So we're very happy to have Joe Taylor, who leads all business processes at Spirit Energy, and Nicole Tompkins, who runs our Sales Cloud practice here at NeuraFlash, and was the key architect. And she'll be kind of talking about, after Joe goes through the kind of what Spirit does, Nicole will kind of talk about how the solution played out. So I'll pass it over to Joe, and he'll give an overview of Spirit Energy, and then we'll jump into kind of how the success of the project panned out. Joe, I'll pass it over to you. Well, looks like we might have lost Joe. So to kind of step in for Joe here, we'll talk through Spirit Services. So they're a oil and gas company specializing in sales and rentals of containers and anything with waste management. So if you think of different hazards or waste materials that need to be picked up, they could be traveling a very long distance, and they're based in West Virginia, and they're serving very large far locations from that in New York, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia. And to kind of talk through, Joe, were you able to join?
Can you hear me, Jason?
Oh, there you are. So
yeah, sorry.
Why don't you, no problem. Why don't you go ahead and talk through a little bit about Spirit and then kind of why you went with field service lightning.
I'm sorry, folks. I had a little technical difficulty, I guess, turning off the mute button there. Spirit Energy Services was started as kind of a water processing management joint venture with the state of Maryland and Washington County, Maryland. And from there, they stemmed off into the energy service sector back in 2006. And we service the Mid-Atlantic region, mostly in the Marcellus and Utica gas plays. We offer midstream services, doing condensate pipeline, used oil, used triethylene glycol, things like that. And then we offer about 50 different 50 different products, I guess. Basically, we rent, we sell booms, oil soaks, things like that for environmental services. We offer drums and such, and we're a small company, about 50 employees and a fleet of 30 commercial vehicles. And we're growing, and that's one of the things that we're into right now. Our customer focus, we focus through the use of industrial leading technology and entrepreneurship core values, and focus on providing specialized premium equipment and well-trained industry employees to execute customers' jobs safely and efficiently, creating value for all affected stakeholders. That includes the community, the employees, and also the shareholders of the company. So we have a couple things that when we decided to look at integrating technology into our business, we had some challenges that we had to address up front. So the problem statement we came up with was our back office processes and systems are not conducive for the growth and scalability that we were requiring. One of the things, we noticed that we had multiple unlinked systems in the background running. We had everything from our waste tracking system to our fleet management systems to ELDs, billing, invoicing systems. Everything was disjointed and no flow in between without a lot of manual processing of paperwork. And with the paperwork, a lot of the data that we were trying to mine back out and create reporting and help us manage our business better day to day, it was locked onto the sheets of paper, and it made it very difficult for us to do any of the data mining and modeling that we needed to do for coming up with the growth strategy. We had a lot of duplication in the paperwork entry. Sometimes some of the data would be entered in 3 or 4 different areas up to about 10 times before it finally reached its final destination. So there was a lot of mismanaged paperwork. We lost paperwork, and that equals less revenue. I mean, we lost bills and billing due to that. And then we had a lot of customer dissatisfaction that stemmed from that. Unfortunately, the oil and gas industry is not very forgiving if you miss a bill. One thing that we've noticed that, especially with their major players, their accounting systems and their accounting folks, they really want you to have your bills in on time, and they expect to be able to close out their procedures and things at the end of the month. And we were struggling to get our reporting and our invoicing out at that time, and we also missed appointments, and it created a lot of dissatisfaction amongst the customer base. We had no visibility of our equipment and our personnel, and what we come to find out is, we were turning less than 1 load a day based on the averages and the average hours that our guys could work. So this really showed us that we were poorly performing based on the information that we were able to mine out manually. And then, of course, we circled back around to invoicing. The invoicing is the most important thing, right? I mean, if we don't invoice the customer, we don't get paid, and if we don't get paid, there's no business. So, being 2 weeks behind, and sometimes even in cases up to 4 weeks, missing information, rework, having to run after people to find data, because somebody forgot to enter something. This was very important in our pre-state as far as the challenges that we had to encompass in our problem statement. Like, how do we manage these 4 items here to, one, allow us to grow with the resources that we have, and knowing that the resources are really tight to get a hold of in this area, finding qualified people, finding equipment at a decent rate, and being able to have the properties and manage our load services a day. So we had some considerations that we had to make for choosing the system. Uh, we looked at a few different systems up front, and we looked at Map Anything, which Salesforce ended up purchasing and integrating it into their field service programs. And we looked at a company called PegX, and we looked at Verizon Reveal, which is their purchase of what was it? Fleetmatics, I believe, was the company that Verizon purchased to start their ELD log thing, and they offer a little field service program as a kind of a bolt-on tool to their ELD system. Well, what we come to find out is if we use any one of these three systems at the time, Map Anything is a great tool, but it is a tool that really needed to be integrated with a bigger vision in order to give you all the effects that you need and the other tools to manage your day-to-day businesses and operations. So we spoke with them and walked away from that one fairly quickly. And then we spoke to PegX, and PegX is basically a waste tracking system. It's wasn't much different from the system that we were currently using, which was Enviroware, which has its own challenges. And then the Reveal system, it was a very basic system, and integrating to other systems was more challenging for us. So we looked at these four sections here, and we said, okay, well, what's the perfect invoice? What's the lead to cash process, and what is the perfect invoice? What gets us the fields and the data required to get paid? Does it meet the internal and customer criteria? And that's basically, for our reporting purposes and for the customer, does it meet the criteria that they need for their oil deck systems and things like that we submit invoices through to make the three-way match pay us? And does our internal collection of data, is it mineable? Is it usable? And does it make sense? And then we looked at the quality real-time data. One of the things, if you look back on the last slide, we were talking about, sometimes we were 2 weeks behind on paperwork. Well, one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to have quality real-time data. We don't want to wait 2 weeks to get paperwork or field paperwork at the end of the day and be 1 day behind. We wanted data to be entered as it goes down out and through the system, from the scheduling and dispatching process all the way to the invoicing process. So that was very important for us. This was, we had to look at how we reduce the modes of failure within that process with the automation that the Salesforce offers. We need to know who the data was captured by and where it was captured, and is it relevant and timely, and does it shorten that process? So we were looking at that process saying, we need to shorten this process. We need to get it through the system faster, not only for our sake, but for the customer's sake, because that leads to faster bill payment, which leads to cash flow for us. Then we looked at the regulatory requirements, and I know if there's anybody on this call today that operates in the oil and gas industry or the waste management industry, and even the transportation industry, regulatory requirements are a huge thing when you're looking at a system. You need to be able to manage the data and the reporting that you need to turn out those reports for the EPA, DEP, DOT. So we use the system in a way, and we were able to customize the system in a way to manage that much better through using Salesforce. And the customer responsiveness. Prior to us using this system or looking at going with this system, we were we were having trouble with our dispatch knowing where locations were or who's been on site, who was qualified to go on site. And we had a lot of customer responsiveness issues where we would maybe show up on site but not send the right qualification out. And the service resource would show up on location, want to go in to work, and they would basically look at us and say, "Well, you're missing your paperwork, or you're not qualified to be here. You're not certified in any way to be on the site." So we would have to go and pull them off and then redirect and send another unit up there. So these were basically our four pillars to building our program and what it's going to take to build it. So considerations in choosing a partner. So in our original phase one of our project, we implemented Sales Cloud from Salesforce, and we were using it basically as just the CRM tool and bringing in leads and processing contracts and things like that. But when we were looking at doing the field service piece and implementing more of an ERP kind of functionality within the system, we were considering a couple different partners, but the things that we really took into consideration were, does the partner have the same synergies within their company as we do? Like, do they have the growth pattern that we are having? Do they understand our pain points? Do they believe in the future? Like, what does our partnership look in the future? How do we as we grow and go different directions, how does that partnership grow and become better and stay stable through that whole process? And what we believe in is we believe that we are a small company at heart, and our numbers prove that, but we also still want to feel that small company feel as we grow to a certain degree and put processes around our entrepreneurial spirit and make it even better. So we looked at this very, very crucially. This is one of the things that was big under the microscope when we were choosing the partner to help us with the field service section. Knowledge, skills, and abilities. I mean, any system you roll out, you want to make sure that you have the right people with the right qualifications and the right abilities. And the team that we work with NeuraFlash, it has been an amazing, incredible project, and these folks are probably some of the most brightest people that I've ever worked with in my career. We've built a very good relationship with NeuraFlash, and they are highly qualified and offer, second to none service to us as a small company. And I'm sure we're not their biggest client, but we get treated just like we would if we had been their biggest client. So they've offered us a professional approach and the personal approach also with handling us and making sure that our pain points are seen and willing to work with us through every part of the process. And this was the biggest one for me as the project lead on this project with Spirit. And in my experience in the past, I've ran into when rolling out projects such as these for systems, a lot of times you're left not knowing how to run the system other than the rudimentary, daily activities. NeuraFlash has been very good at teaching us how to do the detailed troubleshooting, teaching us how to manipulate page layouts, how to even go in and put formulas in. I mean, Greg Mannon and Nicole with the NeuraFlash team have been great with us, helping us direct that. And it has left us in a much better position, not having to call them every 5-10 minutes and ask a question. They have left myself and Holly and a couple other folks at our company very well off and give us the tools that we need to be autonomous and do what we need to do day to day without having to struggle. So the implementation goals that we had for this project, you know, we go through all the things that we were having as pain points and challenges in our business. We really wanted to have visibility at every stage. That was from the dispatch, knowing what we're doing, what cases we're fielding. So what we did is we looked at this and said, well, if we don't have visibility, we don't have anything. So we're going. Visibility is definitely one of the biggest goals of the process. We wanted to reduce the redundant paperwork. Like I said, we were using multiple disjointed systems, and paperwork was getting processed up to 10 times for this same piece of data. Combined multiple disjointed back office systems. That was one of our biggest. We got to be able to reduce and get a full length picture and have the systems talk to each other. We want to increase the number of jobs per day while optimizing the capacity and utilization. So, to the folks out there that deal with transportation and trucking, this equates to number of turns today and how much capacity you're able to put on each truck per load. At the time, we were looking at this project, we were turning less than one turn a day, and there were several times where we would have a 4,800 gallon vacuum truck come back with 1,200, even 500 gallons in it because we weren't able to have the visibility of the customer need out in the field and schedule routes accordingly. We wanted to build customer intimacy and increase satisfaction amongst our customers. And we wanted to create a lean process from lead to cash. We wanted a lean strategy, and we wanted it to flow fast. And we had to utilize technology and get the scalability we need for the future. As we grow, we don't need to be manually processing paperwork, and we need to be able to move that along so people can move on to do better things during the day.
Thank you, Joe. I would like to speak a little bit to how we approached Spirit from the NeuraFlash standpoint. So our strategy for Spirit Services was really to focus on how we could make the biggest impact very quickly for their particular industry and for their day-to-day activities. So right away, when we went on site, we realized that there was a lot of manual processes, a lot of paperwork. There were literally boxes stacked up in the hallway of all of the invoices that they had to go through to make sure that they could get everything that they needed for their customers. And we were looking at a very quick way to move this into the digital space. So knowing that they already had Service Cloud and Field Service Lightning licenses, that's where we focused. And we focused on using standard functionality as much as possible so that we could take advantage of processes that we already knew worked for other customers and other industries, as well as simplifying that process so that Spirit could adopt it quickly and they could take over their system very early on. We also decided to use a phased approach. So we focused on the part of their business that was 80% of their business first, and we focused on getting that right and getting that simplified. So then as we freed up time from all the inefficiencies, we could start to add on the additional processes that they had, such as their rental equipment, adding that on later after we went live with the majority of the workload that they were seeing on a day-to-day. We replaced a lot of the duplicate paperwork that they saw in their daily activities by just building Lightning reports. There were several stations that the liquids and the solids had to go through as they were working that waste from we picked it up to now we're testing it, now we have to invoice it. And every time it went to a new location, there was a new inbound and outbound log to show the ins and outs of everything that they were seeing on a day-to-day basis. And by taking all of that paperwork that they were entering in on a clipboard and then entering into an Excel spreadsheet at the end of the day, building those into Lightning reports eliminated that extra step and allowed us to see where everything was in real time. And then we planned for offline capabilities. So a lot of their customer sites are going to be in remote places, and we knew that that was going to be a common occurrence. So we planned ahead and made sure that anything that we were looking to do while we were on a job site was going to work offline in the field service mobile app. And then anything that didn't, we looked at alternatives, or we looked at how that could fit differently in the process to simplify the driver's experience as they adopted this new tool. So for execution, we focused on basic case management, making sure that all customer requests got to a single location. So this means emails, phone calls, random text messages to drivers. All of those were logged as cases in their Salesforce platform. Everybody on the team had access to that, and they could see what was the asks that were coming in, which customers are looking for us to come on site with them or to their site in the next couple of days or possibly even next week, and how can we respond to them more quickly. We used entitlements to make sure that we were responding to customer questions within 24 hours, and that if we had a work order, we were scheduling that work order within, I believe it was 2 days, to make sure that we were fulfilling those requests. And then we used work order management with service appointments to track the individual jobs that we were scheduling and to make sure that our drivers knew where they were going the next day. So instead of coming into the office at 4 o'clock in the morning and picking up your clipboard with your manifest attached to it, they were able to just go online the night before. They saw where they were going. They saw what time they needed to start their day. It made it very simple for the drivers to look at their schedule ahead of time. We used inventory management for daily transaction logs. So again, this was another large spreadsheet where we're plugging in what our volumes were, what type of waste it was, how much we're moving on a day-to-day basis. We were able to use inventory management to track the volume of the loads that we were picking up in each truck and to track where it was going once we had picked it up, and see that through the entire life cycle. And then we use schedule reports to replace duplicate paperwork and to alert management and the executive staff to, how the team was doing on a day-to-day basis. Did we complete our inspection forms? Are we meeting our compliance regulations? And all those different pieces. And again, that takes out an additional step where your team doesn't have to remember to email their manager to let them know, hey, I completed the facility inspection today. Everything looks good, except for this one thing. They're now getting a scheduled report at the same time every single day that tells them this is what was completed, these were the problems that were reported, and this is what we're doing to follow up on it. So it just takes out any question of waiting for someone to send a communication. All right. And I'm going to pass it back over to Joe to talk about some of the great successes they've had since they've gone live.
Thank you, Nicole. Well, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. I mean, we've done such an amazing job as a team at Spirit. It goes to say, the team that we have is very close knit, and they have done a wonderful job of helping us adopt the program and adopt the strategy. Our management team and leadership team, obviously, they hands down, they've helped drive it. They stood behind us on the whole project, which is one of the most important things that can happen. So I was speaking to you earlier, and our guys in the logistics and transportation section, we went from that turning less than a turn per day to we were doing a 1.5 turns when we switched or opened up new locations. But now we're up to almost 3 to a little bit over 3 turns per day per truck. And that's a definite utilization number that we want to watch, because That's very important. How many turns are we turning customer loads? How many manifests are we generating? Because manifests equal revenue. We doubled our volume per load. We were at the time when we first started this project. When I did all the metrics and was looking at what we were doing in the past years, we were turning about 0.7 turns a day with, less than, I think it was something like 28% of the volume capacity on the truck. And if you think about that, that's a lot of revenue that's just going up and down the road, costing money, and not generating any cash on the back end. So what we ran into is, with the scheduling system and the work order management, we're able to see when the driver checks off of location. We're able to find him other jobs up and down the road on the way back to the facility if he's short capacity, or we can already have him scheduled for a local stop to drop the load and pick up more on the way in, and that has exponentially increased our capacity with the drivers going up and down the road. So that's very important for our business and our strategy of growth. Dispatching process. We had a lot of drop balls with the dispatching process at first. We had one guy that was trying to manage, 60, 70 customers, 20 some trucks, and at the time, and we had multiple drivers out on the road, some, with better communication skills than others. And we noticed that the process just to get somebody dispatched seemed to take, days. Sometimes it was more than a day. So with the visibility of the Gantt chart, we can see who's doing what. We can see how it's working, who's checked on, who's checked out, who's missed an appointment. We have all that visibility now, and the dispatching process to get them out there. We have drivers that will call on the fly and say, "Hey, I've got 10, I've got 10 drums on my truck, but I have capacity. I can put another 50 on there. What do I need to do?" And we can have that guy dispatched on the fly within 20 minutes and have him running out the road to grab more to put on the truck. So that visibility and opening up the view of what we're seeing in the field as administrators and dispatchers, this has really helped our business grow. And the customer satisfaction has just absolutely been outstanding the past few months over this. We were able to simplify and follow up on outstanding manifests for billing. Instead of our accounts receivable manager running around trying to find information, when we dispatch, we create everything in the process starts with the dispatch and the scheduling. That's where the POs make it onto the manifest. That's where all the special instructions. That's where we understand the bill to, where they're going, what they should be picking up. If you're involved in waste management, the profiling section, and we deal with a lot of non-haz RCRA exempt materials. So we're looking at all this stuff and up front with the dispatch, with the training and making the system reliable with information, good information first, and then having the automation there. It's enabled all that information to get it gets put on that manifest up front for the driver. That way, our AR lady, when it comes through, she's not running back and forth trying to figure out pieces of information. So her quality of life, I would have to speak on her behalf, but from what she's told me, her quality of life has went up pretty significantly since we've introduced the system and the value it's added to our paperwork process. And our monthly and daily inspections, such as like forklift inspections, and our NEPTIS permit requires us to do a daily check on our tanks and our containments, and even the warehouse where we store solids and roll-off bins. We have to do a daily inspection, a monthly inspection, and an annual inspection, and all these inspections are held in one system, and the work order is auto-generated. It goes out to the guys. We see the reports come back, who's done what, when it was done. So it's definitely helped with the management of regulatory paperwork on our end for NEPTIS permit in the state of West Virginia. We simplified the follow up on the driver skills and safety certifications. This is something I spoke to earlier. We had drivers that showed up to locations and were rejected from location due to their certifications and skill sets. A lot of the major players out there, like your Mark West Energies and so forth, they require a number of different on-site trainings and regional trainings, and sometimes you have to have your safe land rig card. All this stuff is a requirement to get on site, and we do have some folks that really don't enter those sites and do work for some local smaller mom and pop type locations that would try to show up on those locations and get shot down. So we had to come up with something to manage their qualifications before we could send them out. So this is one of the one of the fail safes that we try to commit to is we gather that data and we enter it into the system, track their certifications and training. And when we schedule them, our sites and our customers all have a skill set or assignment that is required to them. And if that doesn't match on the scheduling, it's going to reject it and say, hey, you need to either pick another person or we need to figure out how to get this guy trained. And this has really helped a lot with the customers calling us and saying, hey, you keep sending me, this guy, and this guy's not qualified to be here. This has been very important to our business. This is something I'm very proud of. We have had 0 missed appointments in a little over 6 months. And I would like to think that it's because of instituting these policies and these procedures and the processes that we developed and having the visibility in the system. We went from having 2 to 3 a week to 0 in months. So that shows you that you're capable of doing it if you're presented the right tools and the right training and putting the right processes in place. And this in turn has gotten us several customers back that we had lost in previous months. And that's a pretty hard thing to do when you're in our industry. Usually the people, no matter what company they work for, if they're in the same region, they pretty much know all they know each other. They all go to the same events together. They all talk. And we were able to regain quite a few major customers back in major sites that helped us grow our revenue the past year. So it's been a very large commitment by the company and our customers to adapt the program and the processes, but there are several upsides to this, and we were able to get a number of quick wins with our customers with having this system. And today, I mean, it's on everybody's mind about COVID-19 and having to work from home and no contacts, social distancing. Well, this program actually put us ahead of most of our competitors in this region. We've been able to decrease our face-to-face contacts and interactions by using the applications and email. We communicate through dispatch, where the drivers don't even have to go to the office now, which saves us time and fuel and money, because some of our drivers they just leave from their house, or they stay in hotels or whatnot near the work, and they work throughout the week. So now they don't have to come into the office every day and expose themselves to the people all in a big group. And then we use the chatter threads to communicate back and forth, which seems to be a much better process for us, because the guys are a lot more attentive to that chatter thread, and it's a quick communication tool. Instead of sending out a formalized email every time you need something, you send a quick chat or message, and it comes right back within a few minutes, and you're on the same page and you're moving along. And our electronic signatures on over the wet ink. Our devices are sanitizable, but paper's not. I mean, you can spray paper with Lysol, I guess, but you'll have a lot of running ink, and it'll start curling up and get brittle. But we were able to leverage the digital signatures in most instances and reduce the number of papers that we're transferring from person to person. And our guys are, as they're done getting the signatures, they go back to the truck. They got a can of Lysol wipes or something, and they just wipe the phone down, and on their way they go. And we were reducing the paperwork touches by using electronic devices and signatures. We still have to print a singular copy for the truck to travel down the road, but overall, that's only being touched by the driver, only at the point of when they go to dispose, and then we deal with the digital signature for the last signature. So the third-party documents are scanned. We still do touch some third-party documents because most of our customers do not have electronic manifesting or digital signature software. So we do have to handle some of the third-party documents as well. That is one drawback to other folks not buying into these type of systems, but it's something that we do. But we do it by scanning it to the work order, so our administrative folks aren't harmed or put into any contact with any COVID related issues. And remote employees, they just need to have the access to the cloud to get the information. It's all there. It's ready for them at the point of service, and they're ready to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Joe. What an incredible success story, and you haven't been couldn't ask for a better partner. So thank you for everything the past year or so here. So what Nicole and myself want to jump through here at the end, we'll try to be brief because we do have a few questions, is to kind of talk through common FSL implementation challenges, and then how we specifically combated those here for Spirit as they implemented FSL, and then jump into some FSL best practices for implementing this solution. So with any FSL implementation, there's going to be a lot of change, and change can be hard, and that can affect user adoption. Especially going from a paper world or Excel sheets or a pre-existing system, and that kind of leads into the next typical challenge, which is kind of a lift and shift mentality, or seeing FSL through the lens of a previous solution. So it's definitely key to have fresh eyes. And that another implementation challenge typically is tribal knowledge when you're scheduling. Either folks, perhaps you've got one dispatcher who's got a lot of information in their head, so kind of moving that to a systematic solution, and allowing a system to implement those rules and objectives to ensure we hit some of those KPIs that Joe previously mentioned. And then from a mobile experience, a lot of this is kind of intertwined with the change that comes into, from a technician's experience. They might be offline, they might be used to doing things a certain way. So kind of, making sure that, there's a simple, intuitive experience so that they can, get everything done that they need to from a business perspective. And then also, as Joe mentioned, from either a compliance or DOT regulation as well. And then from a going live standpoint, when you're deploying FSL to a production environment, making sure that there's a solid plan in place for all of the the technicians and the different rules that are in place for the different territories that operations covers. And I'll pass it over to Nicole to kind of talk through how we solved for these for Spirit specifically. Nicole, and I think
Perfect.
going through the right-hand side.
So how we tackled our approach for Spirit, for a change management perspective, we really focused on finding our super users and identifying the roles that we're going to be using the system, and making sure that we had classroom trainings and individualized follow-up. We did several communication checkpoints with those super users and with individuals that were part of the company, bringing them into those demos, allowing them to see the tool ahead of time and allowing them to get comfortable with the fact that this change was coming and how it was going to help benefit them. We also revisited some of their processes. So like I mentioned before, we had several stations that had very similar paperwork that they were filling out multiple times over. So we wanted to remove those redundancies where possible, and we wanted to leverage native Field Service Lightning features where we could. And that included using work order management and inventory management where it was appropriate, as well as using our skills that is native to the Field Service Lightning platform to help us identify workers that were eligible to go on site to the specific job sites that required certifications. We simplified appointment booking by using email to case and making sure that we had a single repository for all of those requests. We used Field Service Lightning's appointment booking with work rules and scheduling policies to make sure that we were meeting the requirements that were put in place by Spirit Services to have a positive customer experience and to increase that engagement there. So we relied on what was native to the platform to simplify our scheduling process. We also looked at Field Service Mobile and looked for quick wins as well in that area. So there were common tasks that the drivers were doing on every single job, such as updating the quantity of how much actually went into their truck. So that was solved by adding simple quick actions to the Field Service Mobile app, which is very easy to do natively within the platform. So we looked for very quick wins that would increase efficiencies. And then anywhere where we needed a flow, such as we needed them to be able to take a picture of damage to a piece of equipment during an inspection, you could add that as common task within the Field Service Mobile app. And then for our deployment, we were very careful with documenting the changes that we were making to field service settings, documenting the dependencies that we had. We put together our deployment guide. We noted what was there and what our dependencies looked like, and we made sure that we deployed them in order. So best practices for your Field Service Lightning implementation, be sure to leverage a Salesforce partner. Especially if this is your first FSL implementation, or if you're still finding that you're getting familiar with the tool, it's important to find a partner that is appropriate for your particular environment and how you would like to see the project progress forward. So as Joe mentioned, finding someone that was easy for them to work with was very important, and we really enjoyed this engagement with Spirit Services. You also want to clearly define your success criteria. So what does it mean for this project to be successful? We knew going in how many turns Spirit was doing a day. We knew how many manifests on average were probably missing in a given year and what that was costing the company. So knowing that implementing this project and implementing Field Service Lightning is going to give you an immediate return on your investment is really important, and being able to measure that is something that we want to make sure that we're identifying up front so that we can see those successes. Make sure you have alignment with your internal stakeholders, and make sure that there's a vision for the overall project. So it's very easy once you see all the things that Salesforce can do to want it to do everything. So we want to make sure that we are addressing that appropriately. And then for your change management strategy, make sure that you have super users and that you have acceptance criteria and that you've put together a change plan so that everybody knows what's happening when, and you communicate that with your team.
Out of the screen here. I think this kind of correlates with leveraging a Salesforce partner, and specifically a Field Service Lightning certified and expert partner that has unique experience, not only from an industry perspective, but from a use case perspective. So implementing Field Service Lightning and all of the different use cases, from field sales to inventory management to RMAs to all the different types of maybe high volume and optimization use cases that can be kind of allow another lens, as what we previously talked about. Occasionally, from a change management perspective, it's great to kind of understand what other industries or other customers are doing that. And then also, especially early on in the project, understanding where we can leverage native features. And as we previously talked about, I think, from an implementation approach, having when you go through and prepare for this implementation, understanding where you are as a company, and really defining what that MVP looks like, and gaining alignment. As you'll see, some of the core themes here are really alignment internally and preparing for success, which ultimately typically leads to a phased approach to really hit those quick wins and time to value. And then you can see what the end state look like for Spirit in terms of the measurable KPIs. And then again, from a release management perspective, when you're turning another system off and turning on a new system, there's a lot of dependencies. So having a great plan for that to ensure that there's a smooth cutover from a scheduling perspective, from a customer perspective, from a billing perspective. So I think that leads us into our questions and answers.
I don't
we
have
have
anything to
a
add,
few
Jason.
minutes here, and I think a few questions that we can go through. So the first one here is around,
so I think it's
what are
important
the
to
reporting capabilities
include
for
individuals
field
that are
service
excited
lightning,
for
as well
the change,
as
and that are familiar with
I would say this can be correlated
other
to
employees that will
Spirit
be
as
using
well
the
as the
tool.
typical
If
KPIs.
they're used to
So I'll
interacting with
briefly,
those
before passing
individuals, they can
over
understand
to
their pain
Nicole
points
and
on
Joe,
a
I would
more
say
regular
the key
basis.
KPIs that
And
we typically
if
see
they are
are
seen as a
around,
leader in
first
that
time
group
fix
of
rate, or
individuals, or someone that those
maximizing utilization
employees
from a
generally
labor
go to when they have
perspective or from a
questions, they
truck
have that level
capacity
of
perspective,
trust. It helps
measuring
encourage those
productivity
employees
and
to start
customer
to trust in the new
satisfaction,
platform that we're
as well
looking to
as
adopt. So
looking
we
at, from a
had
cost
2 or
perspective,
3
the travel
great
time,
guys at
and measuring
Spirit
the
who really
KPIs
helped us identify
that
where
are
things were going to
relevant for
get kind of
that
tricky for some of
business.
their drivers,
Nicole, anything to add
or
for
where
that
certain
particular
processes
question, or
didn't
Joe?
make sense, or what the drivers were actually looking for that I don't think we could have had if we hadn't brought those super users in.
I do not either. That's pretty thorough.
Alrighty. Well, we did have another one here. I think we did go through this, but I think around managing change, around not only the current COVID coronavirus, but also through kind of the change from a business process. It'd be great to hear, maybe Nicole, any other areas to add from best practices for selecting who the optimal users are for testing or managing the change that goes into these implementations. Awesome. And I think we've got 2 more here. There was one around NeuraFlash's capabilities for supporting implementations in Europe. So we have had global implementations, and I would say that's another piece to alignment, up front, to understand the change management and also what would go into a global rollout. But the short answer is yes. So we got a specific answer for Joe from Randy. So what was the time commitment from a learning perspective from your team as the champion? Throughout the project and also post go live. What did that time commitment look like for you, Joe?
Well, with the size of our company and most of our team members hold multiple hats. The time commitment for myself was pretty large at first. Till I was able to delegate some of the responsibilities off as I trained other folks. So we always focused on what would get us the quickest wins and who was able to pick up things the fastest first, and then move down the line and manage other challenges as we went along. But overall, I mean, like I said earlier in the demo here, we were looking at we have a number of different people in our organization that range from people that are novice with computers and technology, and then you've got people that are intermediate, and then I don't think we have any real experts, but we got this large range of people and multiple generational brackets, and we were able to take the most complicated folks that really challenged us in our beliefs sometimes, whether they were going to do it or take to it or not. And even those folks were able to commit some time and resource, commit their time and their energy into learning it. And at the end of the day, they were able to learn it. So I don't see it as a time commitment, more so as it is a commitment by your culture to adopt something that they know, like they have some kind of buy-in into. So the time really is negligible for those folks because it is something that's offset the time that it took them to do something else and their other challenges. So I think up front it looks a little unworthy at first and really cumbersome, but in the end, results really moved forward pretty fast once we got those quick wins and showed people that it's worth doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. I know we ran a couple minutes over, so I just wanted to thank you, Joe. Thank you, Nicole. And thank you to everyone who attended. If you have any follow-up questions, please reach out to Jessica Cito, who we have her information here. And again, we'll be sending out a survey. So please give us your feedback, and thanks again for joining. Have a good day and stay safe.